Bonn Park podcast is supported by one of my favorites, Gifted in Waterloo. Father's Day is around the corner and they've got some super cool stuff. Gifted in Waterloo was founded in 2015 as a place for people to find unique, practical, and beautiful home decor, kitchenware, barware, and a fabulous selection of cards and paper. Owner Sylvia Horn has a natural affinity for high-quality gifts and a passion for supporting local artists and creators like Robin Andrade and her photographic series of iconic buildings and local businesses that include Harmony Lunch, Carry On Comics, Macintosh Cleaners, and many more recognizable landmarks around town. Sylvia carries the work of independent suppliers and great designers locally across Canada and the US. From bookish apparel and accessories, from out of print to fun Waterloo Region themed stickers, from KW Famous to exquisite enamel jewelry by Toronto-based artist Torch Studio. For cooperative games, puzzles, and pins to fruit and vegetable themed stuffies, funky coasters, and hand-drawn illustrations made by Maggie, Gifted has the perfect gift for anyone. With Sylvia's laid-back, no-pressure, friendly approach to customer service, it isn't hard to get sidetracked just listening to the music in her store while finding items for yourself, amidst a wide range of bath products, totes, and fun accessories that are unique to the area. Gifted is a store with soul, packed with tons of awesome, affordable, and imaginative gift ideas you won't find on just any shelf. Gifted is located at 181 Park Street near Uptown Waterloo. Like Gifted Waterloo on Facebook or Instagram at Gifted Waterloo. Currently, Gifted is taking online orders for delivery or curbside pickup. Contact them through Instagram at Gifted Waterloo. I'm going to be honest, I've been taking full advantage of this feature.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sara Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And I'm so happy to see you, even though it's distance.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks. Today we have Natassja Debra.
Yes, she is an incredible pianist and chamber musician and a piano teacher.
She's actually my piano teacher, which makes her the most patient person on the planet.
So we'll talk lots about teaching people music, and also she plays some wonderful songs for us, and one of them is a Legend of Zelda song.
Yeah, she is incredibly talented, and I just want to share this with everyone. Here she is, Natassja Debra.
So this first one is called Tembang Alit by Jaya Suprana. And the second one is called Fragment, also by Jaya Suprana.
Welcome, Natassja. We're so happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
So Natassja is actually my piano teacher. She's a special person because she can have the patience to teach someone like me who knows absolutely nothing. And she is so incredibly talented. But we met because I answered your Kijiji ad.
Yes.
So I answered 2 ads. One was for a lady who was near my office. And when I went to go see her, she forgot I was coming. When I came into her house, we walked. And if this was you, ma'am, I'm really sorry, but I gotta tell the story. We walked past her grand piano in the living room, down some spirally stairs to her basement into a side room with a door that closed with a keyboard that she had to dust off. And I left there thinking, thank God I'm still alive, because she closed the door behind us.
Yeah.
And then actually, Natassja answered me and she said, yeah, I've got time for you. And when I came and met you, we just clicked. She's such an open, warm person, but also like insanely talented. I thought if I'm lucky enough to take a few hours of this woman's time, then, you know, it's time well spent.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. You're going to make me blush already, and it's just a few minutes in.
It's just true. It's really just true. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the kind words. And I actually don't think I've ever heard the full story how you actually had another piano teacher before, or you've tried both of us.
No, it was like a meeting.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
for
never
sure.
went back.
Oh,
it was
okay.
like the initial let's meet, and I never went back.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I knew that you played piano before, so I knew you had like some skills. And, you know, I was curious about taking adult students at that point, because I've had a couple in the past, but not, I don't know, when I put that up on Kijiji, I just expected that I would have a plethora of kids instead. So I was very excited to meet you, actually.
Thank you. And then when you met me, you were like, she's the best. So this is like such a great idea.
I love it. You were so enthusiastic, and you're like, oh, I'm so nervous. And I'm like, no, it's okay. It's okay. I'm nervous.
I was very nervous to play in front of you because I knew what my skill level was. And I have like I'm a recovering wannabe musician, you know, and I'm trying to awaken something that I did years and years and years ago, and you're helping me with that.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yes. My whole point of posting, I didn't want to specify beginners, adults, intermediate, because everyone comes from different levels, and then I really didn't want people to think that like, oh, if, you know, the teacher is very advanced, then, or, you know, the teacher is like this level, then she only wants, you know, she expects like this level, and, you know, come in with like, I don't know, just like old-fashioned expectations, I guess, you know, and then just like that's why I always ask my students, what do they expect from the lesson? What are their goals from these lessons? Do you want to go through all the RCM? Do you want to be able to lift songs just like that from the radio? Or, you know, is it just something for fun? Are you looking to play a little bit of everything so you can, you know, communicate and use it as like a social thing, especially if you have family coming over, and then, you know, we would ask them to sing and you would play the piano, and it would be a fun time. So everyone comes from like different expectations and backgrounds, and I, as a teacher, really wanted to cater to that. So yeah, I didn't know what I was expecting when I met you, but you came here, and then that was the first day, I think, or only like the first week that I opened my own studio here as well. I usually either teach at the college or I teach at the conservatory. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but you were very energetic, and you absorbed everything, and you are as nerdy about the music as I am. So
I don't know if anyone's as
great.
nerdy about it as you are, but I'll take that compliment. I'll take it.
Is there something you hear in a first time in introduction with a student like Sara, where you, even at the very beginning, you get some sense of feel? I don't know if I'm using the right words, or does it all sound very mechanical and technical when people either start out or start back?
I think when people usually come to me and said that they've played before, there is usually a style that they come with, or either that or a style of learning that is usually visible. Like, for example, if a student comes to me coming in from like a heavy classical background, or they've taken RCM exams in the past. That kind of shows in the way they take their repertoire, in the way they analyze their music. But if you usually, if you've never taken the RCM, but you have, for example, I have students with really good ears that they just lift things from movies, from TV shows, or just video game soundtracks, like that. They're usually a little bit slower when we start reading sheet music. But then if I show them something, they're the fastest to do so.
Right.
So it's a little different. And then an interesting thing that I find is people who, I've got a couple of newly retired people who wants to learn the piano again. They're coming back to it after so many years. They said they used to play, their parents put them in piano, and then they play until a certain age, and then they decided it's not for them, but now they want to come back to it. That they're usually a little different as well, because I'm assuming after so many years, they're not going to play the same. They've been exposed to way more music than a 5-year-old has at that point, and they're a little bit more open to things.
You're so generous about understanding that I'm not lazy. Sometimes I can't get to it. I work, we got this podcast, we've got stuff going on, you've got kids, and you're so kind and gentle, and you'll just say something like, okay, well, what did you have time for? Where are you at? Let's just get to it and see where you're at. And I always leave with something so valuable.
Oh, that's really great to hear, Sarah.
It's so true.
Thank you.
It's so true. So like this, like I was saying earlier, so this past week, we're playing, what are we playing? The Carmen
Habanera.
Yes, which is, everyone knows this song. Can you do a second of it just so we can hear it?
Oh, yeah.
I'll
play the bass line, and then usually people will hear it.
Oh my God. I thought you were going to ask if I would play the top. And I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
But sorry, what were you going to say?
So it's from the Habanera, is from this very dramatic opera. It's the bass line sounds like this.
Yeah, we're going off the mic here, but just to hear it. Yeah. So when I was playing this for you this week with like having little time to practice, it was like plink, plonk, plink, plink, plonk, plink, plonk, plink, like no feeling to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And you let me kind of get through it, and then you showed me how it's supposed to sound, and even just being able to watch how you work and to see how you're putting it all together, that's so valuable to me as a beginner. That really is.
That really warms my heart as a teacher.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
It's true.
I'm really glad if that's of value to you. Yeah, like I understand that sometimes, like I try to be strict with the students for sure. I come from a very strict classical background, but I understand that it's really up to the teachers to make the classroom engaging. And also, like, there's nothing really you can do about it if, your students have a million different courses, from swimming to tennis to, if you have like those kind of high achiever kids, or if you have working moms, who, you don't always come unprepared. Right, like I know you. Like you're usually.
I'm trying.
You're usually good. Yeah. And it's, I don't want that to deter them from taking music, or even worse, thinking that, like, getting a little bit turned off from music in general, because sometimes it's just like that. And making, like, practicing in general for piano lessons is and should be a habit over time. And, like, for example, that tune, right? It's not, sometimes some people are a little slower in specific areas, but it doesn't mean that they don't get it, or they don't know how to do something, or that they're not understanding it. It's just, usually it takes a little bit more repetition. For example, that one, I purposely picked that one because the notes aren't hard, but it's more like hand coordination, right? And then it's that syncopation that it becomes harder as you go from where you are now to, like, the next level I want you to be at. it's not gonna be like that's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not gonna be on the beat all the time.
When I hear that, I think about I'm reminded how hauntingly beautiful that song is. But I don't understand how it's really achieved in terms of, does somebody have to be of a certain level of excellence to actually make it sound like that?
No, not really. I think musicality, I think if you're talking about the groove, the feel, that's definitely something you develop over time. But usually you can only develop over time if you have the basics and the technique to back it up. And that's something that everyone starts from the bottom. Yeah, it takes years, but I don't think it's necessarily innate.
Right. So when I watched you perform that opening song you did, and the way your hands so gracefully move, like it looks effortless to me. Is that is there some point along the way after all those thousands of hours of practice that just kind of something clicks, or is it something so subtle that you don't even realize it's happening?
It's definitely something subtle that I didn't realize it was happening. And then over time, I start noticing I do certain things that is very quote unquote typical of me for a lot of my pieces. Or typically if like some pieces or some songs have similar parts, that I'm very used to it, and say like a composition by a certain composer like Chopin, for example. If since I play a lot of his composition, if I play anything in the Romantic period, the art and movement, that's very in a similar style as Chopin, or like something flowy that's very, obvious, or very much derived from something like Chopin's composition, then I play it the same sort of. Yeah. It's a matter of preference, definitely in the beginning. But after a while too, you kind of find your own style and you kind of make the piece yours. Actually, the first song that I played, it's not exactly written like that. The very first one that I played is Tembang Alit.
I thought you were reading sheet music and you weren't.
No.
You just had sheet music up on the piano.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So Tembang Alit, it's a little bit about the song. It's actually an Indonesian song.
Oh, wow.
So it's made by Jaya Suprana, who's a Chinese Indonesian composer.
Oh, the same composer as the second song then.
Correct.
Right, which I know from your YouTube channel, which is amazing.
Tembang Alit wasn't exactly written like that. It's like some of the repetitions are different. I actually modified that. And some of the dynamic markings are a little different. For those of you who are familiar with classical music, everything is like hard set rules, right? That's where you're repeating. That's where you go to your coda. That's the piano part, which is in dynamic language. It means you have to play it quieter. Forte is F. You have to play it like louder and all that. But I definitely modified a couple. And then I kind of just go where the music goes almost. I know that sounds cheesy, but
it doesn't. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. But I definitely did my own take on it.
We wouldn't have known either way, right, Marshall?
No.
It was so beautiful. I was like kind of getting choked up when I was looking over at Marshall and he was just glued to the piano. He was not looking over.
Oh.
Yeah, it takes you away to another world, right?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Thank you very much.
Is that Indonesian composer?
Jaya Suprana.
It's near and dear to your heart?
Because of my heritage. Honestly, it's one of those tunes that I actually started playing, not really thinking about, I'm
honoring my life.
In the beginning, I just heard it. I was in a lot of competitions, piano competitions when I was younger. So often when you go to these things, you get to see everyone's performances from the beginning until the end if you choose to stay for the whole thing. So it was just like a random song in the beginning that one of these kids were playing after me, and they won.
Oh,
So-
yeah, that'll stick with you, won't it?
Yeah. But I remember the same thing. I remember being so glued to the performance, and it was just something so bizarre. And at that point, I didn't touch any Indonesian songs or anything contemporary. Everything I played up until that point was Mozart, Beethoven, a couple of sonatinas or Bach. But that was the very first thing that was very bizarre and non-diatonic.
Right.
And by that I mean it's not your typical like do re mi fa sol la ti do, because it's an Indonesian song based on traditional Indonesian instruments. Specifically for this one is the gamelan. So the gamelan is just one of the many traditional instruments that we have. And it's actually a series of gongs. So it's a collective instrument, and everyone gets a section. So he transcribed multiple, it's basically a whole orchestra in itself. So he transcribed like different parts of it, like the rhythmic part of it, the melodic part of it, and he put it all in the piano.
Wow.
So it was really bizarre, and you don't hear the typical do re mi fa sol la ti do because the gamelan doesn't come like that.
Right.
Everyone has a typical scale. Like a do re mi fa sol la ti do is of Western classical background, but like Southeast Asia has so many, and like Indonesia even has angklung, gamelan, and pelok, and like pelok is part of the gamelan actually. So even like the collective instruments have like certain sections in subdivisions
Right.
within them, and they're all not do re mi fa sol la ti do. It's a specific Asian scale, or according to whatever country you're listening to. They all have different, like the Chinese have a different thing, the Japanese have a different thing. Actually Japanese koto music is very, very famous as well. And yes, it's so many. Like world music is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And for some reason, when I was growing up, it's very much classical. The biggest thing. Yeah, there wasn't I don't remember being. I don't remember having a lot of options in what kind of instruments I can play in terms of traditional instruments. You typically, parents over there, they typically put students in music schools, but usually they will study classical, or they will study, the guitar, or just like not traditional instruments.
But not
for
traditional
sure.
for Indonesian music.
Yeah.
Huh.
That term world music, that didn't even, from what I understand, didn't really even exist like before the 1980s. Is that right?
They do. They're quite old.
Yeah, sorry, the term world
The
music,
genre.
the
You mean
genre.
the music,
Yeah, in fact, I remember interviewing the lead singer of Toto, who wrote the song Africa,
Oh.
and he told me that he didn't think that term even existed in pop music anyways.
Yes.
Yeah, but obviously it has existed long before that. And, okay.
It's just the bringing of it to
Yeah.
Western
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I think with like the recent years, especially, it became more popular. And yes, I guess that's where they really coined
Yeah.
the term world music. But it's very unique. So when I heard it when I was a kid, and with this other kid who ended up winning the competition,
You've never forgotten it.
I'm a bit of a sore loser, I guess.
I am too. I get it.
What do you hear in pop music today? Like in terms of, I've spoken to some people who have immersed their lives in like classic trained
Yeah.
music, and it seems like it's almost like not really of interest in some ways.
It's a little bland, perhaps, because in classical music you're always changing chords. Actually, not even just classical music. Like if you're doing world music, you have all these other things that you need to focus on, like the rhythm, and then the change in, if it's the type of world music that requires a dancer, then the change of a gesture means something, and then you have to like modify something. And in jazz, you're always improvising. You could have like a standard and play it however you want, as long as you always go back in the first beat with a band. And like there's so many more to music. I think a lot of musicians don't really agree with pop music, or they think of it as like, oh, it's nothing, because it's a little bland. Chord progression is the same. It's usually like the same 4 or the same 6, and I guess like and they're very catchy because they're very simple.
Yeah.
They appeal to the masses that way then.
Yeah. But like the interesting thing is, I don't know, I really like pop as well, but I definitely have gravitated to the kind of pop that has a little bit more oomph to it, I suppose.
Some structure, something you can sink your teeth into, or what?
More like if they don't have a creative chord progression, that's fine. But I want to hear synths. I want to hear electronic at the background. I want to hear, like, say, some ASMR sounds and stuff.
Something ambient in it.
Yeah. And I suppose that kind of takes it away from traditional pop music at that point.
But that's great that you can enjoy that without picking it apart, right?
Yes.
I don't know if that's true for everybody.
I agree on that. Like I hear like sometimes you make something, or you make something simple, and then they're like, oh, that sounds like a pop music, or like that's something that sounds so ordinary. Because it's true, like actually like 90% of the pop music, it's kind of the same. Like it's the same chord progression,
just mixed up different ways.
Ways. Yeah. Even in classical music, actually there's a lot of that. Yes.
I wish everyone could see the face that she's making right now. But she just remembered a song that's not sitting well with her.
Yeah, or maybe it's something that's even like regarded and hailed as something so incredible, but for whatever reason you just don't get it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your story, right? Because you didn't just wake up one day and be able to do these amazing things that you do.
No, I was actually born in New Zealand.
Okay.
Yeah, in Hamilton, New Zealand.
Hamilton, New Zealand.
Actually, yes. And I went to school here in Canada, in Hamilton, Ontario.
I'm sure they're equally as beautiful.
Yeah,
it's a good
I love Hamilton.
pro wrestling town.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, I did not know that part.
Did you grow up in New Zealand?
Only until I was 5, and then I moved to Indonesia, and then I actually grew up to Indonesia for the longest period of my life.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Canada for school.
And you're a graduate of
Mohawk College in Hamilton, the applied music program. The program is divided into 2 streams, one of it being classical and the other jazz.
And on Natassja's YouTube, you can actually see her college recital, which is amazing.
Then I'll just post whatever I feel like fun and entertaining and inspiring to people, and just
stuff they've asked for sometimes
too. Definitely stuff they have asked for, or something that I know will easily be entertaining to them, and they don't have something that won't require them to have to listen to again and again to get. I think
that they can appreciate it on the one listen even. Well, I know I've watched many of the videos, and I absolutely love them. Piano on the patio. People can see you around town, right?
Yes.
Playing at different cafes, restaurants, and stuff like that. Yeah, and are you enjoying that?
I am enjoying that very much, actually. Yes. Yeah. I'm a little bit on the shyer side, so actually I usually am always shaking when I go up the stage, and I don't like being there and being on the spotlight and people actually like looking at me, like, like I put my hair to the front so that people can't see my face and just see my fingers. But like, I got over that because I had to do that whole recital. Yeah, but I do a lot of gigs around town. I'm trying to get to know the area a little better because I moved here from Hamilton after I graduated, but I actually never really lived here before that. I was only here for high school, coming straight out from Indonesia for 8 months, and then I took off to university. So it's been really interesting getting to know the area, and then just these cafes. And when I was in school, I didn't get to perform this much. So I had school, and then I had like a lot of other things, and I didn't really do a lot of performance outside of a school setting or outside of an event that is organized by my program, if that makes sense. Someone from the program is always doing some marketing, or they are always the one approaching me to play. But now that I'm off school, I'm on my own, and now I have to approach people and like making cold calls and doing all that. So that was it was a bit of a learning curve, and definitely like for my personality too, I have to kind of be proactive
Or what
I
was that
guess.
like playing in venues for the first time, whether it's a patio or maybe an art exhibition opening where the audience is talking, you know, and kind of clinking of glasses and all those things. Are you okay with that idea that people aren't fully engaged and
Yeah,
listening? They kind of coexist, right?
I like it. Some people don't, especially if you're coming from the classical world. I think a lot of people it's distracting, right? Especially if you're trying to do all the little stuff. People don't like it because you first of all, you don't get the full sound of it, you don't get all the details, and it's usually it's just kind of like background music as people do something else, right? So it's a whole different vibe and a different way of how the audience perceive you, but it's coexisting. And if you're not there to play the music, then it's kind of bland, right? Think about a party without the radio playing music. That's it's kind of dry, almost. So no, but I really like it. In the beginning I liked it because if you make a mistake, then no one would care.
And it takes a little bit of the heat off of you, right?
For
not
sure.
all eyes are on you when you can hear them clinking glasses and having dinner or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, oh, okay, like I can mask it, but it became something of an enjoyment because, well, first of all, you can't really mask it. I've come to realize that sometimes, you never know who's listening, who's actually paying attention to you, right? And it's actually sometimes a little bit more intimidating because you never know. Like if you play somewhere and they hear that you made a mistake, I try not to make a face when I do it, even though I usually do. But then everyone's sort of like, oh, okay, she made a mistake. Okay, like it's out in the open. It's whatever. Right. I mean, it's not whatever, but it's obvious. But if you make a mistake and you think no one's looking, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the performance, I don't know, like someone says like, oh, I really like your prelude, or I really like that. And then you're like, oh, that's the one that I actually butcher,
And there's no way for us to know, like, unless we were your music people, there's no way for us to know if you've made an error of some kind.
Yes. Yeah. But the reason why I like that is true. And like the reason why I like these settings is because how nice it is, like how relaxing it is, and how enjoyable the whole thing become, because people who wants to listen can, and people who just wants to do their own thing and then have like a little something at the background can. And it's way less isolated as well. I think I like the togetherness of it.
Yeah, like when you said it's coexisting, I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful way to put it.
It's Marshall's word.
Oh, was it? Oh, sorry.
Well, I think about art exhibitions and how
yes,
a musician like Natassja can come in and it just elevates everything. It's like suddenly this joint is a classy place, and I think it inspires conversation and puts everybody kind of at ease and brings something very special as opposed to it not being there. And it can feel very different. It can feel very sterile and cold when. I wanted to ask you about so how old were you when you moved from Indonesia to Canada?
I was 17.
Yeah, so that's an interesting age. I've listened to so many artists over the years talk about making a huge move like that and the cultural duality they experience, not feeling like the new place ever really feels like home. And then as the years march on, feeling a bit of a disconnect with home and not understanding why that's not feeling like home so much. Did you have any of those experiences?
Yeah, I did. I think for the longest time, I thought I was the most adaptable individual ever, and I thought I didn't feel it. But I think over the years, especially when you grow older and then stuff happens and you're like, wow, I really feel it. The move, the distance and everything, it really did a toll on me, or like it really affects me. I should say. Yeah, like it's different, and that makes me different from the people back home, and it definitely doesn't automatically make me as one of the people who grew up in Canada from from birth to now. So it kind of puts me in a unique position, I think, that duality as well, because I've seen like two completely different cultures and the way people perceive things, way
like you have to code switch when you're between the two of them, right? Like when you're in Indonesia, you have certain behaviors and certain things that you do, and when you're here, you have to make that switch, right?
For sure. Like some of the norms are a little different, right? They like the social norms, and over there it's like just one thing. It's not really the norm, but like the way things are over there is more collective, and here it's more individualistic. So that's also a little bit different. And I suppose another way I look at it is I kind of bring a little bit, like I bring Canada to Indonesia a little bit, and I bring Indonesia to Canada a little bit. So that kind of puts me in a position that I can't always relate to most people, I guess, unless they're also in the same boat as me. Coming from like a huge move and things like that. But I never really let it distract me from connecting with people.
Good.
I think. Yeah.
Well, I like what you were saying earlier tonight, and actually the other day when I was here for my lesson, you were saying that you were listening to our podcast and that you were just realizing how many cool people there are in town.
Yes.
Because we are a very individual city. We I think Marshall calls it the garage door society or something.
Yeah,
garage door
just
culture.
the way that the houses and subdivisions are built now, with the garage being kind of further to the sidewalk, then I just noticed this pattern of vehicles driving into the garage, and the door comes down, and people just aren't, for whatever reason, out on their front lawns or using their front porches and interacting like old neighborhoods did. And I think it's a detriment to how we meet and how we talk to each other.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're finding you're getting out there into the city and meeting cool people and finding all these cool restaurants and cafes to play at, right? It's kind of like you're immersing yourself in the community, right? Because you from Hamilton to Indonesia to Hamilton to Waterloo. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's
a little
lot
stint
of
back in
moving.
Indonesia and then back to Waterloo.
Yeah. It's I like it. Like I think that the thing about music is, my personal reason of playing is eventually I want to like either help people or connect with people, or kind of like, I don't think my main goal is to be an untouchable artist, that plays there and then, really, really cool, but no one really knows what's going on, or no one really feel like they can talk to you, or no one really feel like they can relate. And I mean, I'm not saying like all the great people in the industry is like that. No, definitely no, but it definitely can be a little bit detached looking sometimes, especially if you don't, if some of the people in the audience don't really understand them, like, not don't really understand, never was exposed to that kind of music before. Like, for example, like classical, like I get a lot of comments about like, oh, that's really cool. I don't get what you're doing, but that's really cool. Like the reason why I wanted to connect with a lot of people, because I wanted to see what everyone else is doing. And I also want them to understand, I think. I want to be like a collective, people from all different backgrounds and musical uniqueness, I think. Yeah, going out to these like cafes, or like actually a lot of the cafes in Waterloo and Kitchener, they actually appreciate music a lot. So every time, like, sometimes they have like different bands put up there. They have like music nights, open mics and stuff like that. And actually Hamilton does that like like a lot too. Like you go out and there's different kind of music every night. You can do that every night. So it's an interesting thing to come. It's kind of like it's kind of like going to a different jungle every time, You don't know what kind of crowd these bands will attract. And definitely sometimes like the venue owners even have like preferences in what kind of style of music they play.
For sure,
they want to have, right? And then just even like the background of Kitchener and Waterloo historically as a town matters as well. Like I find there's a lot of rock and blues in our area. For example, like it's really different. I grew up with classical and like, yes, pop, of course, but there's so much genre. Like there's so many genres out there that is equally as interesting that I never get my hands on to.
It makes me think about how all the music venues she's speaking of are different ones than the ones we knew in the 1990s.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had quite a music scene here.
Oh, really?
So much changes, though. And
well, we also, there could still be one, but we're old.
Right, yeah. Before
don't
we
get out as much.
before we started recording, I told you what big fans my family are of The Legend of Zelda.
Yes.
And you're going to be playing a song for us, the Song of Storms.
Song of Storms.
Yeah. So how did you discover video game music in that way, or is it just Legend of Zelda?
I mean, how did I discover Legend of Zelda, the video game, or how did I get playing that?
Both.
Both, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Well, like the Japanese games have always been a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
I think when I was younger, I really liked playing RPG games. Actually, like if I were to have the time right now, I would still play RPG games. It's cool. It's like a fantasy setting, and then you're this cool hero, adventurous hero, and then you go like do all these missions and stuff. And then especially these days with the whole tech advances and everything, now they're starting to make these kind of role-playing games open world as well, right? So there's almost no storyline to it. I mean, there's a storyline, but there's like 100,000 different things you can do in the game, or like different things that you can collect in the game. So a game that in the old days would just take like 20 hours to finish or something in the span of time, now you can
Play for life.
Yeah. Because there's always something, and they're always doing updates, and you can be stuck in chapter 3 for like a week.
So did somebody like request Zelda from you, or was Zelda close to your heart?
Zelda was close to my heart. Yes. I played. I didn't actually play all of their games. Actually, just Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask. But I knew it was very famous, and I have always liked their music. So even though I didn't finish all the games, I've always sort of like dabbled here and there. And it's the Instagram questions. That's how I engage with my audience, by the way. So, but yeah, I talked to a couple of people, and then they were like, "Oh, you should play video game music." So, okay, video game music, like what kind? So people start putting all sorts of their nostalgic childhood video games, and I suddenly have like this whole list that I can just pick and choose.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, music in Legend of Zelda is a huge part of those worlds they create, right? It's very moody, and Majora's Mask has some really scary kind of darker parts to it.
I think that Natassja is kind of drawn to dark music a little bit. Dark and a little offbeat.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
No, I'm drawn to dark music because like I'll be listening to Otis Redding or something like bluesy and sort of sad and dark, and like no, I just really like how sad music makes me feel. I enjoy that feeling. Yeah, it's very indulgent, but like I'll go there. I love it.
Yeah. I love sad, and also I wouldn't say sad music. I think it's just like music with like a certain flow or a certain melancholy to it.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
It's pretty usually, and it kind of like you said, like it's kind of indulgent. And if you're feeling down, almost like sometimes people go to the piano to create their own thing, but to me it was more like exploring all sorts of different textures in these kind of music. And also it's even funner. It's even more fun if the music has like a plot twist in the middle, or like a contrasting bit to it, or something that you just gets thrown in there unexpectedly. I love it.
Yeah, the one piece you played tonight had a real nice surprise in it, where everything just kind of jumped up and sped up in that.
That's one of my favorites. I've watched that video so many times. I recognize it when you started to play it. It's beautiful. And your recovery is amazing. In the first song that you were playing, a paper fell onto the keyboard, and she just plays through. You played on the paper, around the paper, until the paper fell. And we're just sitting here staring at you. I guess I should have come over and picked it up, but I didn't. I came a little too late.
When I was actually, it's funny you say that. When I was younger, I remember before this one competition or one open house from the conservatory that I used to be a part of in Indonesia, my teacher said that, just keep playing, like, try not to make a face or
don't react. Just
don't react.
Move forward.
Exactly, because he's like, 90% of it, the audience is not going to notice. Maybe I will notice if I'm at the audience, he said. Yeah, but he said that even if a bomb goes off,
You keep playing?
you keep playing. Yeah, so I think that, like, especially that bit about the bomb,
Yep.
actually I think that is like sort of embedded
Yeah.
in my head. So yeah, that whatever happens, I just usually keep playing, or I try to not restart.
I think that's such a part of you being a professional too, because again, I'll state that I'm a beginner, but if I'm practicing and I think I've kind of got a song and I'm gonna be excited to bring it to you and show you how far I've gotten, and somebody in my house makes a noise or talks or walks by, I totally lose my train of thought. Just that little bit of distraction is enough to make me need to start all the way over again. And I just haven't put in those hours and hours like you have, right? To get to that point where you just don't see it or feel it.
Yes, it's definitely a habit and a skill to kind of tune out everything, and especially to tune out your own comments that you make in your head when you make a mistake as well, right? To like, oh, like I could have played that better, but like no, like that it is what it is, and then just play the next one how it's supposed to be played.
Right.
You know, when I was younger, I had a tendency of every time I make a mistake, I make a face first, and then after that, I try to prove myself so hard at the next few passages, or for the rest of the songs I make it extra loud or extra quiet to be dramatic.
I'm moving on.
Yeah. To moving on to make a point,
Yes.
you know, to kind of make up for the mishap that I did before. But it doesn't have to be like that.
You taught me a very cool trick last year, which was learn the last 4 bars or whatever of the song, because normally people struggle with the end of the song, right? And you get the beginning down so much. You said go right to the end, learn the last 4 bars, and then when you're going through your song, you're looking forward to this part that you can crush so well.
Yes.
It was such a wonderful
For
trick,
sure.
and it gave me so much momentum and excitement to get there.
Yeah.
Tasha, as we start to wrap up, I was going to say Tasha touched on something that was really interesting, how her music teachers are still in your head somewhat.
Talking to you.
And is that the case as a student?
So it's a little bit more selfish and internal at this point, because again, I'm a beginner. So it's more like, oh, I wonder what she's going to think about that. And oh, am I ready to go and talk to her? And it's usually that I have to cancel class because of work or life. If it's like, oh no, I have to call her or text her and cancel again. What is she going to think? But yeah, no, it's, I don't even think I'm at that point yet. I think that it's more, try to remember the tips that you gave me, but I'm not quite at the point yet where I'm good enough to know when you're going to be talking to me. You know what I mean?
It's definitely, like, my teachers definitely played a huge part in my life, in my musical career in general. Also, like these few bits and pieces that they told me, you know, the whole thing about the bomb and.
That's okay. That's okay.
Oops. And the just like a lot about like being content, and there's a really good quote that I got from my music teacher back from Mohawk, is you don't think of it as you have to prove something or you have to be the best or you know you have something to make up for or anything like that, especially if you make a mistake, right? That's the tendency that we tend to go to. Think about it as you're sharing the music. You're not being there to prove anything or to show anything. You're sharing the music because it's fun, you like it, and you want other people to like it as well. And I think these little comments that all of the teachers that I had in the past really affected me to be who I am as a person and how I developed throughout the years as a musician as well. And I want to be that kind of person that can like positively influence my own students someday. So
it's you are a positive influence, that's for sure. I want to tell one more quick little story, which is I came for a lesson once early last summer, and I come into the music room, and Natassja's got a harp. Like a full-on harp. And I was like, whose harp, man? She's like, oh, I'm just learning the harp.
Yes.
I have a harp teacher.
Yes.
Have you been working on it at all?
I actually have, but I haven't been taking lessons.
No. Okay.
Yes. I've stopped for a little bit, and trying to focus on my piano, and like I'm actually learning the jazz as well on the piano. So I think until maybe like in a couple of months, I'm actually going to like start.
I can't wait to hear something.
What I love about the harp is, unlike the guitar, you can actually make a beautiful sound with it, with having never touched it before. I know from having touched a harp one time.
Somebody let you try?
Yeah. Whereas a guitar you pick up and you just can't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your incredible music with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for
This
having
was so much
me.
fun.
Yeah.
So where can people find you online?
So I have a music channel. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Piano on the Patio. And all my music is there. If you want to connect with me and you want to see my day-to-day life as a pianist, I often post more content on my Instagram as well. So you can find me over there. And actually, the type of videos that I post on Instagram and the type of videos that I post on YouTube are actually different. So some of the contents aren't the same. So you can check both of them out.
And what's your Instagram handle?
Piano on the Patio. Well, thank you very much for having me, because this has been really fun. And I think I mentioned it to you earlier that Bonn Park is really great. This is where I literally hear all about these cool people in the area where I live. And I don't think any other podcast or any other, there's no other one. It's just you guys doing this kind of thing, inviting people and seeing what everyone else is doing.
Well, thanks. And thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah, we're going to make that the beginning of our show.
Yeah, I think
time.
so. I think that we'll just have you saying that each time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this one is called Song of Storms. It is a theme from The Legend of Zelda, transcribed by Lily Pichu.
Hey all, thanks for meeting us in Bonn Park. Please like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on the platform that you're listening to. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bonn Park Podcast. Original music by Alan Lung.